Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. I am Jack McCurry, and joining me today is Jack Duffin. Jack, how's everything going, bud?
I'm doing good. I've welcomed the newest members to the dog pound. Little Claude, French Bulldog. He's only 9 weeks old. Had a nice week off relaxing with him. And no, exciting, loving life.
Yeah, I'm loving the pictures of Claude. I mean, he's a cute little guy. How did he enjoy cricket the other day?
I took him to a football, or as you guys would call it, soccer game, and then took him to a cricket game straight after, and he slept straight through both. It doesn't seem to be a sports enthusiast. As I sent you the pictures as well, playing Madden, no, that sent him to sleep. Yeah, sports is definitely not his strong suit. Which at the end of the day, if he wants to sleep while I'm watching sports all the time, then it's a nice collaboration between us.
Definitely, it's the best case scenario because then he sleeps and you can enjoy the games, and it's a match made in heaven right there.
I think Sundays when the NFL's on, I've got all that great food. I think he'll be a lot more awake then.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime the food's out, the dogs come running. All right. So yeah, we're definitely gonna talk some Browns on this episode, and the biggest topic is the injury bug has definitely hit Berea so far. I mean, we haven't done a pod here in the last couple of weeks. There's been plenty of injuries to talk about, but some big ones definitely happened today. First of all, Terrence Mitchell wasn't on the field at the beginning of practice. Turns out that was a knee injury he's going through, so he was out. There was also a number of players out today going into the practice session. Kadero Hodge was missing, Carl Joseph and Landry are both. This is where they practice every other day while they're recuperating from injuries they suffered last season. So their off day was expected. Kevin Johnson, which we'll touch on here shortly. David Njoku, he was out with a wrist injury. Larry Ogunjobi's out with a groin. Damian Ratley's out with a groin injury. JC Tretter, obviously recuperating from the knee scope he got at the beginning of camp. He's expected back hopefully by week 1. They said no later than week 3. And then, of course, we're still waiting on the Mack Wilson injury, which we'll also touch on in depth on this episode. But, Jack, the big news of the day, Grant Delpit, the team's second-round pick, was backpedaling on a position drill at the very beginning of practice, went down to the ground, was carted off the field, and now they are talking about a Achilles injury, and he's getting an MRI done tonight, according to reports. And it seems like the team is fearing the worst. And if it is an Achilles injury, it would be safe to say Grant Delpit will not be on the field for the 2020 season.
Yeah, so he's the worst one. Not to say it's not a bad thing when other players get injured, but it doesn't particularly bother me too much if a guy on a 1-year contract that is sort of a rotational to starter level player. I'm not that upset. A player with massive upside, like Delpit, who you want to have a really good season, and there'll be loads of ups and downs. It's going to be a rookie season. That was what you're really looking forward. Not for him to be a big positive contributor in year 1, but to get all of that learning out the way, and so we can really embrace it next year when we're hopefully going for a decent postseason run. That one's going to be the hardest hit. Hopefully the MRI shows that it's not torn and it's just an injury, but we'll see when that comes out. But yeah, I'm expecting the worst, and then it's time to, because every other member of the secondary other than MJ Stewart is basically injured, time to log on to the free agency list and start making a move.
Yeah, you brought up MJ Stewart, and actually he got hurt today too. They said he had an ice wrap on his back of his leg. It's a hamstring injury. Greedy Williams got injured today as well, shoulder injury. The secondary's taking a big hit. So we're looking at a situation right now where it's Denzel Ward, and then guys like Donovan Alumba, AJ Green. God, I can't even think of all the other corners we have. Donnie Lewis, who we drafted. I think it was Dorsey's last draft pick as a Brown. Those guys were getting the reps with the first team offense today. And then I think an undrafted safety was taking Grant Delpit's reps at free safety. So, because obviously Joseph was sidelined today. Like we said, Mitchell, we're getting down to the bottom of the secondary when it comes to guys getting reps now in practice. So, yeah, I agree with you. If these injuries are going to be long term, we're within 3 weeks of the season. You're going to have to start calling free agents, bringing guys in for workouts. I already know myself and you are already beating the drum to bring Logan Ryan in. He played in Delpit's role in Joe Woods' defense. So it makes sense that, he's probably the best defensive back available, not named Earl Thomas. Logan Ryan's still sitting out there. Makes all the sense in the world with the Browns still having a ton of cap space to come bring him in.
Yeah, so he's sort of a nickel slash strong safety. Wants to be more of a strong safety, and his agent's been pumping out the numbers, him compared in sort of not key stats, but those sort of tackles, pass breakups, all of those sort of stats. And he compares very well to sort of all of your safety group out there. So that's what he wants to be paid and why he hasn't signed for the team yet. Do we go make an offer? Yeah, I would say it's definitely worth doing, even if it's just for a couple of years this year and then obviously next year when he's going to struggle to get paid because there is going to be that tough year with 175 million salary cap. So if we can make a nice offer of say, hey, we'll give you 2 years and let's see how it goes, then I think that's something worth doing. The other name is it Fontana? I don't know the guy I saw. Somebody retweet. I think it might have been Emmett Gooden. Said Eric Berry is apparently took last year out to get fully healthy. And his agent has been telling teams earlier in this offseason that he is looking to come back and give it a go. So that might be a name that they come in and just work him out. Let's see, because if he can produce to say 75, 80% of what he used to be, it's a cracking player to have. It'd be a great story for him to come back. Obviously, time might have already passed him, but there's no harm in having a workout.
Yeah, I remember, was it last year when Dorsey was still the GM, there was talk, Earl Thomas was mentioned right after we traded for Odell Beckham. He ended up signing with Baltimore, but Eric Berry was a name floated out around there. But yeah, he took last year off to recover from some injuries. He's in his 30s, so it would be only, I think, a 1-year deal, but that's possible. Rashad Jones is out there, Tony Jefferson. Is Trey Boston still on the market?
No, he's in Carolina still.
Okay, because I'm looking at a free agent safety list and he's on there, so I was wondering what was up. Eric Reed's also another option as well. I don't think he was ever re-signed after Carolina dropped him. So there's plenty of safeties out there. Corners, I'm not sure who they would go after.
There's one slot that I liked. Was, I don't know how you pronounce his surname. Is Javian Elliott? He's not amazing, but he did the business with Carolina. He's definitely someone I would happily bring in and look at. I've sort of mentioned him in an article I did quite a while ago as sort of an option at slot. Because, yeah, if Kevin Johnson's going to be out, and at the end of the day, it just gives you more options. If you're going to be playing 5-6 DBs, then it doesn't matter too much if they're cornerbacks or they're big nickel. It's get the volume there at least. So if someone goes down, you can at least bring another person in. Yeah, you might have the ideas of, look, I'd rather it was a safety than a cornerback, and I get that. But bodies is where we need to be if we're going to have quite a few injuries. Even if it's a case of, hey, stick a few of these guys on PUP, bring them back after 6 weeks into the season, and then we can let some of these cheaper guys go or maybe trade them off.
Yeah, let's talk about Kevin Johnson, because this was another scary injury last week. He lacerated liver. Like, I've heard of lacerated kidney before, but I had never heard of somebody's liver getting lacerated. And I think it was a situation where the rookie tight end Harrison Bryant fell on him after a catch or a play, and that's where the injury occurred. People were, fearing the worst, that he was going to be out. I think it's like a 2-month recovery. But he was released from the hospital over the weekend, and he's going to start get back into the possibility where he can get back out on the practice field, I guess, in the next week or two, which would be a huge shot in the arm to the secondary, because Johnson had been the primary nickel so far throughout camp, which was a surprise to some just because he had never played a lot of snaps at nickel, myself included. I thought he was going to be more as an outside guy to push Greedy opposite Denzel Ward, but if Johnson can come back maybe not even by the opener against Baltimore, but week 2 against Cincinnati, it would definitely be a huge boost to the secondary.
No, it's certainly help out, and I was shocked. It sounds a very grim injury when someone says laceration. It almost feel like someone's taken like a knife to somebody, and it sounds grim. But obviously it's not that bad. So no, fingers crossed. Who knows? It might be one that he goes out there and it gets a little bit worse and then takes more time off. But I would rather be positive, and if it's 2 weeks, that puts him in a really good spot to get back and get rolling. A name I know you're not keen on, but I'm certainly keen to give him a 1-year deal. I think the upside is there. I'd get on that phone and see what Earl Thomas wants.
I was thinking about it at first just because he is a talented player, but it's just the Browns are trying to change the culture in Berea. And, we've had a lot of bad eggs over the years. Why don't we just take a year to stay away from the bad eggs? Just keep the guys in-house that we got, the good character guys. I know not everybody's a choir boy, but I just let Earl Thomas slide on and move to another team. Because you see a good organization like the Baltimore Ravens, yes, they've had their bad eggs in the past, Ray Lewis, Ray Rice, etc. But they obviously got fed up with Earl Thomas. There has to be a reason behind it. There is multiple reasons, and it's been detailed in reports over the last couple days. I think that's just something that the Browns should pass on.
Yeah, and it's one of them that you can work out a contract that you give him 1 year. There's no real guarantees in there because, if you want to, he obviously knows he's done wrong. You can walk away then if he does something stupid, or put it all as like per game roster bonuses, and he's got to be on the roster and playing each week to get anything. So I would say there's a way. Obviously, there's more out there that we'll probably never know what went down entirely, and that might be one of those things where the front office hears and then they go, we're not drafting that guy, or during the draft we're not picking that guy up in free agency, and you go, hey, fair enough. In theory, I'm well up for it, but there could easily be more behind the scenes where I go, if I knew that, then it's a no.
Yeah, let's talk about, the last big significant injury to the Browns, and I know you might be indifferent on it just because of the position. It is Mack Wilson. I mean, last week he was one day, he was a poor tackle, but I get it. When they're on the field, the adrenaline's rushing, mistakes are going to happen. The tackle that led to Nick Chubb going into the concussion protocol. Good thing is Nick's back. The concussion symptoms went away after a couple days. But then the following day, Mack Wilson hyperextends his knee, was carted off the field. They're still waiting, I think, for the swelling to go down. He's supposed to get a second opinion by one of the top doctors over here when it comes to sports injuries. But this is a situation where Mack could be out 8 weeks. He could get surgery. We don't have a clear picture yet on how severe the knee injury is, but obviously not good for a player that a lot of people had expectations for coming into 2020.
Yeah, it's really disappointing, more for the long term rather than the short term, because BJ Goodson, all the reports are he's done really well so far in camp, but he's not the answer. Whereas there's 3 young players that could all be the answer in the number 1 or number 2 linebacker slot. I think between them, there's going to be enough talent there that happily fills your sort of linebacker 3, linebacker 4 going forward. But we want to know, do any of these guys step up and make the 1 slot or the 2 slot at linebacker? And you've got Taki, you've got Mack Wilson, you've got Phillips, and you just need 1. Or even if you get really lucky and 2 do it, then you're not going into the next draft going, right, we'll take a 5th, 6th, 7th round flyer on a linebacker, but it's there as sort of we just took a pot shot on someone because we liked him. Whereas it's tough because you're now down to 2 guys, and unless you sort of see something from one of those 2 this year, you've potentially got to redraft in there with a 3rd or 4th round pick, and you don't want to be doing that. We want to be spending that in the secondary. We want to be spending it in other positions. So personally, I don't think Mack Wilson's the answer, but it's 1 rookie year. It was grim, but he got a lot of opportunity, and that can be important for a player, that he's got all of that out the way. He knows what he was doing wrong, and now he's going to go learn from it. So it was disappointing. Hopefully, yeah, if it's 8 weeks, stick him on PUP, bring him back after 6, and then you can sort of stash him for 2 weeks because you've got some inactives, etc. So he's easy enough to sit on the roster for 2 weeks and then have him back ready for week 8.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, Goodson's been tearing it up in camp, like you said. Phillips has had his moments. Taki's had his moments. But there's a lot of inexperience there. And that led to the Browns ultimately working out and soon after signing former Super Bowl MVP Malcolm Smith to a 1-year deal. You're laughing, so I can't wait to hear this. But, I was on with Brad Ward, who works over at the Browns Wire, on his pod last night because we were doing a fantasy draft. And I said that I don't think Smith is going to be, maybe the long-term. When I say long-term, I'm talking about the whole season being a starter or being a guy that gets a lot of snaps. I just feel like that's going to be like a patch until A, Mac Wilson comes back, or B, Taki or Phillips is in a situation where they can get the majority of the snaps alongside Goodson, because I don't see them playing 3 linebackers a lot. We've talked about this plenty. When they get into the nickel and dime packages, you'll see at least 1 linebacker. You might see 2 at the max that get a significant amount of snaps. So what was your thoughts on the signing of Malcolm Smith?
So it's just the fact that he keeps getting called a Super Bowl MVP. Here's a question for you. Do you know how many snaps he played during that Super Bowl?
I seen he only played like 30-something.
36 snaps.
Hey,
that is just, it's ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. And the way he's talked about it, you're like, oh, this guy's going to be great. And then I looked up his numbers and I was like, nah. And you're like, oh, last year weren't bad. And that's what I thought. I was like, oh, you did all right. And then I looked and it was like, oh, it's you played like 89 snaps. So it's one that, yeah, he's just a solid piece. Hope he would be a player that you would normally go, yeah, let's bring him in as sort of the third linebacker, offer some rotation, give us another option if someone goes down. And to be fair, I think that's all we're going to ask him to do. Ideally, they're going to hope one of the kids steps up and they can play that one of them guys. But they're going to be happy enough sticking him out there if they need to. So you would guess he knows what he's doing. If you play him, he's probably going to pick up an injury, and hey, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. We haven't seen the terms yet, but it's probably going to be a vet minimum, nothing. So why not? There's no harm in it.
Yeah, speaking of contract terms, a guy that you were pounding the table for all offseason, Nigel Bradham, got cut by the Saints today. Didn't even make it a month with them. And when we were talking this morning, you said there was no contract terms. So I went and actually looked it up. Spotrac and Over the Cap didn't have contract terms. It's very curious to me that he didn't make it even a month with the Saints. So I just wonder if whatever, I don't remember the injury that he went through last year, if it's still lingering or he just didn't fit with what they wanted. Or it's very curious. I know some people were saying, why don't the Browns bring Bradham in? If he didn't make it a month with the Saints, it makes me think that there's something there maybe with the injury to where he's not physically capable right now to contribute to an NFL roster.
Well, there could be a couple of reasons. So the Saints are really up hard against the cap. They're in the worst position of any team in the NFL by a country mile. Even though you look at the numbers next year and them and the Eagles are very similar, the Eagles' contract structure is very different. They can move on from some players, do some stuff, whereas the Saints really can't. Apparently, their 2 top linebackers were actually 2 of the youngsters. I don't know if they've got one older guy in there, but 2 of the youngsters have both been with the first team. So it might have been one of those where they went, look, we'll respect the player. We're not going to keep you around here, Bradham. We could keep you for another couple of weeks and then cut you at the deadline. And you get some teams that have really good relationships with agents. And it helps when you're going and then trying to get more players to come to you in the future of going, look, we're probably going to cut you because we like these 2 kids more or something else happens, and go now, get back there on the market and try see what happens. Or it could be a case of, it's injuries and it's not quite there. But hey, I would just say work out, work out, work out. And there's no harm bringing in these guys. You obviously don't want to use it frivolously because agents won't want to send players, and also you've got the COVID and all the other stuff. But there's no harm in just bringing in loads of guys. They've did it with the kickers. They brought in, I think it was 8 or 9 different kickers, and that was all about preparing their emergency list, which is a smart thing to do because, hey, it's not just the emergency list. Kickers is a really tough position to sort of stay consistent week to week. So if you have a bad couple of weeks from a kicker, you want to know that this is the one guy we want. Right, let's cut him, bring someone else in. You can't go, right, we'll bury him on the roster. He's only a defensive end or a linebacker. We'll give him a couple of weeks and we'll give him another shot sort of at more starting reps. You can't do that. You've only got space for one kicker on your roster. So if you're getting rid of him, he's going to IR, he's going to get cut.
Yeah, I thought that was so fascinating the other day. I think it's getting ready to sign with the Patriots, but they brought in 4 kickers, and like I sent it to you right away because you've been saying Cyber wasn't that good last year. It amazed me that they did not bring someone in to compete with him during camp. So, but like you said, it's just logistics for an emergency list if he were to get COVID or if an injury goes down, that they have that relationship built already with some of these free agent kickers.
Yeah, and also COVID's the perfect excuse. So they could bring some guys in and be like, hey, is there anyone we like, or is there anyone we think these guys probably not going to get picked up because they're unlikely people are going to make that many kicker moves now. But you might go Cyber, right, you got 1 week. You don't tell him he's got 1 week or 2 weeks, but you can quickly go straight away. You're like, right, he's gone, bring someone else in, because he doesn't need to do too much. It's more on a punter is harder to change, not because of what you're asking them to do, but because of the holding on the snap and things like that. Whereas a kicker, you're out there to kick, and that's pretty much it. Whereas your punter, how the kicker wants the ball held and things like that takes a little bit more time to learn. So no, I would say we're in a good spot, and if they want to go grab someone, then they're easy enough to do it. He's got no money on his contract, so boom, you're a late round pick. Good luck, and we'll move on. Bring back Zane.
Yes, although he's got a solid home in Arizona, I think, for the time being. So, which is still kind of ticks me off. I know it's just a kicker, but the fact that they gave up on him just because he had a strained groin, he threw him out there anyways, and then he embarrassed himself against New Orleans, and they ended up having to cut him. It's an unfortunate situation, but Zane's got a solid home with the Cardinals, so hopefully he has a lengthy career there as well. Just because we haven't talked, the JC Tretter injury, I mean, it was we were kind of worried at the beginning. Obviously, Nick Harris, the team's 5th round pick, has stepped in, and you haven't heard too many, there hasn't been many at all complaints about his performance at center. It's kind of scary to think we got 2 rookies on the offensive line right now going into week 1 against Baltimore, where they have a very tough defensive front. But, Wills has had his issues, but obviously he's going up against Vernon and ultimately will go up against Myles Garrett. So I think he can only get better from that. And, but Harris, from all accounts, has looked solid so far at center, stepping into that role.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. It's one of them weird ones. It's probably unique in position in the NFL that if you don't hear anything about the O-line, that's a good thing. Whereas every other spot on the roster, maybe other than sort of kicker, punter, and long snapper, if you don't hear anything from them, it means it's good. And no, it's one where he seems to be ticking along. Obviously, it's quite nice the fact that they're not next to each other. Obviously, Teller's not big name. It's not like he's got Bitonio and Zeitler either side of him and he feels really safe in there. But it's like he's got Bitonio there, who's solid. So it's good. It puts the Browns in a great position because if he does really well this year, obviously we want JC back because JC's a massive upgrade on anything going on. And yeah, you don't want to go in the season with 2 rookies and sort of Teller in there because it creates too much risk. But you get to see what the guy does, because the last thing you want is you're 2 years down the line and you haven't seen a real NFL snap from a player and you're having to decide, do we want this guy or do we keep the old vet that is on the decline? Whereas we might get to see something, and at least we get camp where he can compete with the first team, and you're not having to go, oh, JC, we're thinking about moving on from you, but do you mind just sitting with the second team for a week? You can actually really see and get a flavour. So, yeah, I'm not saying we're going to move on anytime soon. He's definitely got another year, JC, but with the 175 million cap, if they get an opportunity, and the example I've used, if Justin Simmons pops up and they go, right, if we trade off JC, we bring in Justin Simmons, it's the same, it's slightly more money, but that's sort of the opportunity where they go, we feel confident we're going to get 90% out of Harris. Let's go and get a top 3 safety in the NFL. That's the sort of stuff where you go, look, I don't want to get rid of JC, but I'm willing to do that move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I also think that JC is probably helping Harris off the field, with, play design, like calls. I mean, he's building that relationship with Baker as well. And I think that's a good thing, because if they do move on from Tretter here in the next couple seasons, Harris and Baker are already establishing a relationship as the, Harris has to call out what the defense is doing. That way Baker can make audible. So they're building that chemistry as well. So I think that's a good thing too, not only for the now, but for the future as well. Jack, as we wrap up, anything coming down the pipeline over at the Dogland? You got anything in the works?
I haven't got anything in the works, but that doesn't mean anything's going to happen. So right. There's a couple of little things I've been toying with, but nothing came up. So yeah, I think I've got to do another week of dog training before we see what's up my sleeve. But no, I've got some ideas. We'll see what happens.
Excellent. I want to do this projected 53-man roster, but with all these injuries, it's like I don't even want to try to throw something at the wall and see if it's going to stick at this point.
I'd love to do a roundtable article where we just go position room by position room, and then we each write up sort of a piece, the three of us, and sort of battle it out and see where we come up.
That actually sounds like a good idea. We'll have to talk to Anthony and see if we can put something together. We got less than 3 weeks, so it's
wow,
it's getting close. It's getting close. College football, well, whatever is left of college football starts next weekend, so we're getting football back into our lives. High school starts over here in the States this week. Unfortunately, no spectators except family members. So, but we're getting to that point where football's back.
Yeah, we got soccer, as you guys call it. Got to go to my first game Saturday, so that was great. It's 5 months without going to a game. It's the longest probably since I was about 10. I've not been to a game, so we're talking a good 18 years. So that was crazy.
So was there a limited capacity, or what was it like? How was it over there?
It's 15% capacity, but the trouble is when you're at that level, I think the legal capacity is like 3,000. So we generally get about 200 people at a game. So everyone can turn up. There's no real restrictions as such. So
okay,
just be sensible, have a drink. But it just felt like normal. So it was really nice.
That's good. Yeah, I know that the Ravens announced today no fans at the opener against the Browns. The state of Ohio, I think they said up to 1,500 fans, but I feel like the Browns and the Bengals, and I feel like the University of Cincinnati, because they're the only college team in the state that's actually going to play, I feel like they're pushing for a little more. I know that the Browns were tinkering with like 20% capacity, which would be around, I think, 17,000 in the stadium. So the Haslam said they have a solid plan in place. They're just waiting on the state's approval. So it's going to be interesting because it's so weird because every team has a different plan, and the states are all working individually. It just makes for a bad situation because you have one state that's allowing a certain amount of fans, one state that isn't allowing fans. It just makes for a bad situation, and I can see why the anger about testing and all these social distancing things is really starting to boil over, just because football is allowed in some states, football isn't happening until the spring in others. It's just making for a bad situation all around.
Yeah, I can see the frustration, and it's one where we've been feeling the same way. It's like, all right, I can go to a crowded pub and that's perfectly fine, but I can spread out massively at a non-league football stadium, but that's bad. And it's like, No, and I get why sort of professional sports stadiums you're not allowed to do that. When I talk about going to watch football, we're talking semi-pro. These guys are getting paid like £100 a week. They're doing it as sort of a hobby with a little bit of money on the side. So it's one where you're not talking any professional sport. Professional sport's still not allowed fans in the UK. But yeah, well, we'll see. I just want the NFL back. Get the NFL on my TV, and that sorts me out a good, at least, is it 3 nights a week? So we've got Sunday all day, and then I've got Monday, Friday for me, but it's Thursday. And yeah, if not, fingers crossed. Oh, why not? Let's have a bit of Friday and Saturday as well. Give it to me crazy. Let's have it every night.
Yeah. They haven't really brought up whether they're going to expand the schedule out. Obviously, 3 of the power conferences in college football are going to keep going, so that'll fill plenty of the Saturdays. So I wouldn't expect Saturday night football, but there could be a Friday night game, I would think, just because high school football, like I said, it's state by state, whether they're going to have it now or push it to the spring. They're having it in the fall here in Ohio, so Friday night games might not be a great idea until at least mid-November, because that's when the high school season will end.
But if you're only allowing the family, in most cases, then hey, give me more NFL. Sod the family members of them high school kids. Give me more NFL.
Amen, man. Amen. Well, we thank everybody for listening to this episode. Me and Anthony are going to sit down for another episode sometime this week. So definitely keep it locked here on the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. For those that listen, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. It'll really help us out. If you're listening anywhere else, subscribe, follow, however you can subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. Follow us at The Dogland, at Jack McCurry08, and at Jack Duffin. Duffin is DUFFIN. With that, as we get on out of here, till next time, go Browns.
Go Browns.